In the beginning, the light of creation hovered over the earth, but shadows were moving quietly. The earth was perfect, untouched, and man walked side by side with the Almighty. Everything was harmony, until a whisper and a choice forever changed the world's destiny. When man fell, the earth fell with him. Angels broke their vows, giants trampled upon men, and corruption spread like fire. The earth groaned under the weight of sin. Then God spoke, and when God speaks, all of creation trembles. This is the story of a world before the flood, when almost everything was destroyed. At first, the world was a place of unimaginable splendor. Mountains rose in majesty, the seas danced with the wind, and the sky seemed to sing. Animals lived in harmony, and the garden breeze carried the scent of eternity. God walked with man, and the dawn of existence illuminated Adam's life. Eve smiled as she saw the animals gather around her in trust. Everything had been given to them, and they felt not only created, but loved. Yet a new sound echoed among the trees, the whisper of doubt. The serpent, beautiful and shining, introduced the first thought of disobedience. The choice was made, and with it came the fall. Eden, once a home, became a memory. Adam and Eve left the garden with shame and longing, while the separation between heaven and earth was sealed by a flaming sword. When Eve gave birth to her first son, Cain, tears mixed with blood, marking the beginning of humanity and suffering. Cain grew proud and distant. Abel, his brother, was humble and devoted. Abel offered the best of his sheep, and Cain, with bitterness, offered the fruit of the earth. God accepted Abel's offering and rejected Cain's. Jealousy turned into poison, transforming the field into a tomb. The earth cried out for the blood of the righteous, and God's face was hidden for a moment. Cain became a fugitive, leaving behind his mother's gaze and his father's silence. But life continued. Seth was born, and from him, a lineage that would seek the Creator. Men lived for centuries. Births and deaths became waves in the ocean of time. Knowledge grew. Tents were erected, animals domesticated, metals forged, melodies played on the first harps and flutes. Civilization flourished, but few invoked the name of the Lord. Among them emerged Lamech, a descendant of Cain, a man of sharp words and violent hands. His lineage marked an age, dividing art and war. Jabal cared for flocks and tents. Jubal created music, flutes and harps. Tubal-Cain forged weapons and tools. Beauty and destruction walked side by side as cities rose and leaders became kings. Above, the Lord saw the growing distance between him and man. Faith gave way to power, and the pursuit of the divine was replaced by self-exaltation. Yet hope remained. In the days of Enosh, men began to call upon the Lord again, and small flames of faith resisted the darkness. But shadows already weighed heavily. Celestial beings descended to earth. The Watchers, their brilliance inspired both fear and desire. 200 of them made a pact never to return without first taking human wives, and so they descended. Received as gods, their robes shone, their voices were like soft thunder, and their eyes pierced the soul. Women desired them, men feared them. The children from these unions were no ordinary humans. They grew in strength, height, and arrogance. They were the Nephilim, giants, and the first tyrants. Their blood demands turned fertile fields into lands of slavery. The corrupted Watchers taught sorcery, astrology, genetic manipulation, hallucinogenic herbs, and warcraft. Darkness covered the earth, and hybrid creatures were born, profaning creation. Amidst this corruption walked a man with God, Enoch, a descendant of Seth. His eyes saw beyond the veil. His dreams were prophetic. He proclaimed judgment, warning that the Watchers would be punished and the giants destroyed, but he was mocked. Enoch wrote everything on stones and scrolls, describing portals, celestial spheres, and the coming great judgment. Eventually, he disappeared, taken by God. Without Enoch, the darkness deepened. The watchers continued their works, and the earth groaned under corruption. God sent his angels to judge. Uriel carried the sentence, while Michael, Raphael, and Gabriel prepared to execute divine justice. Meanwhile, men built towers, offered children in rituals to the Nephilim, and the world burned with magic, cruelty, and lust. Amid the chaos, a lineage resisted, the descendants of Seth. A righteous man, Noah, worked the land with calloused hands and listened closely to the voice of God. His sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, learned from him to fear the Lord, even among the most corrupt generation ever to inhabit the earth. One night, God's presence appeared, announcing the end of all flesh and instructing Noah to build an ark. With unwavering faith, Noah began the project while the world mocked his warning. The Nephilim ruled with an iron fist. Chaos dominated the cities, yet Noah persevered. God guided the animals to the ark, and construction progressed under divine protection. Michael attacked the Nephilim, the giants fell, and the watchers were chained in the abyss. The world prepared for final judgment. The ark stood like a silent mountain in the valley, rising as a sign of obedience in the midst of rebellion. Every strike of Noah's hammer echoed like a warning. Passers-by laughed, pointing fingers, calling him mad. But Noah's eyes remained fixed, for he knew the voice of God was true. His sons carried wood, smeared pitch, and lifted beams, while his wife prepared provisions, storing grain and water inside the growing vessel. Slowly, the animals began to appear, not by human command, but by divine order. Pairs of creatures walked through the valleys, lions and lambs side by side, wolves and doves in peace, elephants shaking the earth with their steps, birds covering the sky like living clouds. People watched with awe, yet their hearts remained hardened. Noah stood at the entrance of the ark, calling, "Repent, for the flood is near." But mockery answered him. Men sang drunken songs, women danced in feasts, and leaders scoffed, saying, "Where is this flood you speak of, old man?" The ark was finished, a fortress of wood 3 stories high, a womb of salvation amid the coming chaos. The sky grew strange. Clouds heavy and dark began to gather, though no rain had yet fallen. Thunder rolled faintly like a distant warning. Noah's heart trembled, but his faith stood firm. God commanded him, "Enter the ark, you and your house, for I have found you righteous." And Noah obeyed. The animals entered in order, guided as if by an invisible hand. The doors were closed, not by Noah's strength but by the hand of the Almighty. Then silence fell. Outside, the crowd laughed, but the heavens held their breath. Suddenly, the fountains of the deep broke open. From beneath the earth, waters burst forth like raging beasts. From above, the sky tore apart. Rain, heavy and unrelenting, poured as if heaven itself had cracked. Screams filled the valleys as rivers swelled and mountains began to vanish beneath rising waves. Inside the ark, darkness reigned, but peace dwelt with them. The cries of the perishing world echoed against the wooden walls. Families clung to trees, men climbed rooftops, mothers held children to their breasts. But the waters rose higher, and nothing with breath survived outside. The ark lifted from the ground, tossed by the waves like a leaf upon the ocean. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the chaos. The Nephilim roaring as the waters consumed them, cities dissolving into mud, and temples collapsing under divine judgment. The watchers, chained in their prisons, screamed as their sons, the giants, were erased from the earth. For 40 days and 40 nights the rain did not cease. The ark drifted in endless waters where sky and sea became one. Mountains disappeared, and the earth returned to the chaos of its beginning. But inside the ark, life endured, and the promise of a new world was carried upon the waters. Then the rain ceased. The silence after the storm was haunting. The sun pierced the clouds, revealing a world washed clean, though scarred by judgment. The ark floated until it rested upon the mountains of Ararat. Noah waited, patient and reverent, until the waters withdrew. He sent out a raven, but it did not return. Then he sent a dove, which came back with nothing. Another time the dove returned with an olive leaf, and hope bloomed within Noah's chest. At last the dove did not return, for the earth was ready to be inhabited again. When the ark's doors opened, Noah and his family stepped onto the renewed earth. The ground was damp, the air fresh, the horizon empty of cities and corruption. They bowed down, building an altar of thanksgiving. The smoke rose, carrying their gratitude to heaven. And God made a covenant. In the sky appeared a bow of colors, vivid against the blackened clouds. A rainbow, the sign of mercy after wrath. God promised never again to destroy the earth with a flood, and His word sealed the new age. Yet even in the new world, shadows lingered. Noah's descendants spread, building tribes, seeking lands, and founding cities. Nations began to rise, and with them came pride once again. Among the plains of Shinar, men gathered to build a tower that would reach the heavens. Their voices united in arrogance, saying, "Let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered across the earth." The tower grew, a stairway of rebellion, bricks stacked with ambition, smoke of pride rising with every level. But God descended to see the work of man. He spoke, "Behold, they are one people, and nothing they plan will be impossible for them." Then He confounded their language. Confusion spread like fire. Masons no longer understood one another. Leaders shouted in tongues foreign to their own. The tower stood unfinished, a monument to human vanity. The nations scattered, each with their own speech and land. The tower became known as Babel, the place of confusion, and so began the division of peoples and tongues spreading across the earth. From the scattering at Babel came generations of kings, warriors, and shepherds. Among the tribes, one man rose, a man called Abram. He was born in Ur of the Chaldeans, a city of idols where men worshipped stone and fire. Yet the voice of the Eternal reached him. "Leave your country, your people, and your father's house, and go to the land I will show you." Abram obeyed. With his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, and all their possessions, he left the familiar for the unknown. His caravan crossed deserts, climbed hills, and braved storms. He walked by faith, guided only by the promise of a land, a people, and a blessing that would reach the ends of the earth. At Shechem, Abram built an altar. At Bethel, he raised another. Everywhere he went, he proclaimed the name of the Lord. Famine forced him into Egypt, where Pharaoh desired Sarai, but God struck Egypt with plagues until she was returned unharmed. Abram learned that the promise was not without trials. Lot chose the fertile plains near Sodom, while Abram remained in the hills of Canaan. War came, kings against kings, armies clashing in the valley of Siddim. Lot was captured, and Abram gathered his men, pursued the victors, and won a miraculous triumph. Returning, he was met by Melchizedek, king of Salem, priest of the Most High, who blessed him with bread and wine. Abram gave him a tenth of all, recognizing the divine hand in his victory. Yet Abram's heart was troubled, for he had no son. God took him outside and said, "Look at the heavens and count the stars if you can. So shall your descendants be." Abram believed, and it was credited to him as righteousness. A covenant was sealed with fire, a promise written in eternity. Years passed. Sarai, unable to bear children, gave her maid Hagar to Abram. Ishmael was born, strong and wild, yet not the son of the promise. When Abram was 99, God appeared again. "Your name shall be Abraham, for I have made you the father of many nations. Sarai shall be Sarah, and she shall bear a son." 3 visitors came, shining with divine light. They sat under the oaks of Mamre and ate with Abraham. One announced, "By this time next year Sarah will have a son." Sarah laughed within her tent, but God answered, "Is anything too hard for the Lord?" Meanwhile, judgment approached the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. Their sins rose to heaven like smoke from a cursed fire. Abraham interceded, pleading for mercy. Will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked? If there are 50, 40, 30, even 10? And the Lord answered, For the sake of 10, I will not destroy it. But not even 10 righteous were found. Angels entered Sodom, and Lot received them into his house. The men of the city surrounded the home, demanding corruption, but were struck with blindness. At dawn, Lot and his family fled. Fire fell from heaven, consuming the cities, leaving only ashes and silence. Lot's wife looked back, longing for what was doomed, and became a pillar of salt. From the ruins rose a lesson carved into eternity, that God is just, merciful, but also a consuming fire. Abraham, far away, saw the smoke rise like a furnace, and his heart trembled with reverence. At last, the promise was fulfilled. Sarah gave birth to a son, Isaac. Laughter filled the tents, for what was impossible had been made possible. The child grew, and with him, the hope of nations. But God tested Abraham. Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and offer him as a burnt offering on a mountain I will show you. Abraham's heart broke, yet his faith did not falter. He walked 3 days, carrying fire and knife, while Isaac carried the wood of the sacrifice. On the mountain Isaac asked, Father, where is the lamb? Abraham answered, God himself will provide the lamb. He raised the knife, but an angel cried, Abraham, do not lay your hand on the boy. A ram was caught in the thicket, and it became the sacrifice. Abraham named that place, The Lord Will Provide. The promise continued. Isaac grew, married Rebekah, and fathered Esau and Jacob. The twins struggled in the womb, and God declared, 2 nations are in your womb, the older shall serve the younger. Esau became a hunter, Jacob a quiet man. One day, Esau sold his birthright for a bowl of stew, despising what was holy. Jacob, cunning yet chosen, dreamed of a ladder reaching heaven, with angels ascending and descending upon it. God stood above it and said, I am with you, and will not leave you until I have done what I have promised. Jacob awoke and said, Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. Thus began the journey of the chosen people, through promises, struggles, and the unfolding of destiny. Jacob's journey was long and filled with trials. In the house of Laban he worked 7 years for Rachel, whom he loved, but was deceived and given Leah instead. Another 7 years passed before Rachel became his wife. Through labor and strife, Jacob's family grew, 12 sons who would become the tribes of Israel. Rachel wept for her barrenness, but at last God remembered her, and Joseph was born, a child of promise, destined to change the fate of nations. As Jacob's household prospered, envy grew among Laban's sons. God spoke to Jacob, Return to the land of your fathers, and I will be with you. On the way, Jacob wrestled through the night with a mysterious man, a heavenly being. Struggling until dawn, he refused to let go, saying, I will not let you go unless you bless